Welcome back, and we're moving into our first conversation this morning as we start our panel discussion with a number of young people representing our tertiary level institutions. We have with us Noheli Habet, who is the president at Galen, no, she is the events coordinator, sorry, at Galen University. We have Danika Valerio, who is the president at Sacred Heart Junior College. We have Shiyanne Perez, who is the president of the University of Belize's Association of Student Government. And we have Phillip Usher, who's running for president at Wesley Junior College. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here. All right, so this morning we wanted to have a conversation about young people and their perspectives of the political system that we have within this country. And your schools all said, well, here are some persons who've been through their own form of system or going through of voting and running for office. So let me just start with a little bit of a background on each of you, right? What are you studying and what prompted you to move into a leadership role at your school, right? Let's start here.
Well, I major business administration with a minor in marketing. Mm-hmm. This is the beginning of my third year.
Okay.
I have always been interested in trying to get into more leadership activities.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So and doing activities for students. Mm-hmm. So I picked up interest when they brought up the idea of
go ahead.
When they brought up the idea of student government. So I wanted to get involved so that we could do more activities so that students would get more involved in what happens in the school and how they can input the decisions from the administration.
All right, next.
My major at Sacred Heart Junior College is accounting. I was very interested in that field, and I joined the student government, which was my first act of presidency to announce it as a student union instead of government because of the image people think of the government. So I changed it, and I wanted this position because there are many things happening at school that are unfair to us students, and I wanted to act upon it and be a leader at school.
Okay.
At the university, I'm majoring natural resources management. I'm on my last semester for my associate's degree. This is my second year on the student government, and my first year I was serving as the administrative officer, but it has been something that I have been doing from high school. I started the university, and from my first year I wanted to join, but I couldn't, so now I had the opportunity and I took it because I believe that there are a lot of changes that could be made around the campus, and my biggest hope is to see students become more active in our culture, in activities on the campus, in society in general.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Phillip Usher, and going for my associate degree, this is my third year, and basically I decided to join the student body for president because I'm always around in campus assisting the students, helping them out. I actually have a study group into which I use different psychological tactics into how to help the students to better themselves in their studying techniques, and also how they carry themselves within society itself. So, sorry, nervous.
That's okay.
I've been asked by several students, why don't you run for president? We see you as a president. We see you as someone who will actually run and try to assist us more often. So therefore, I decided to take up the position into assisting more. So that's where I came in.
Well, thank you for your introductions. And now we get to pick your brains to find out more about youth engagement and politics. And I think, Danika, you gave us a great segue just now. You said when you ran for student body president, you decided to shift from the term student government to student union because of the students' perspective as to what a government represents. Please explain that for us.
Well, when I gave my introduction at school or my speech, I asked everyone what they thought or what the image they gave of the government in general, not just us, but in general, and they said the first thing they thought of was politics and corruption and greed and money. And I didn't want that image for our student body or the leaders that we have at school. So I requested that it be changed to the student union so that we can have a unity, one entity, and the slogan that we carry as Scorpions, a familia.
That's a very telling statement that you saw there. And I do want to ask from the rest of you, what seems to be the perspective for you, your friends, and other people that you interact with about what leadership of a country entails?
Well, leadership entails like you all have to work towards one vision. Like you can't, like being a leader doesn't mean that you'll like give out tasks and this is what you'll do and we can't communicate on it. We have to come together and work. We have to set goals and we have to have it in our minds that we are working toward this and we will get there together, not by following one. We are working together as one group.
Yeah.
Like Noheli said, we believe that it's good to be transparent, to keep everybody involved in making decisions, in carrying out the tasks. It's not just a one-person job, something that needs the input of everyone.
Do you believe, sorry, go ahead.
In part of being a leader within society, not only as the government body within the school itself, but to motivate other students, to let them know exactly what it is, what is essential for this nation to unfold, because we are all unfolding. We're the youths who will be representing the nation at some point or the other. So in part of unfolding, we must understand that it is not only about just taking up that responsibility, taking up that task, and trying to do everything on your own, but to teach the other students how to get involved with you, along with you, for the nation.
Do you guys believe that perhaps your involvement in leadership at this level, where you're at the tertiary level, that perhaps this could transcend into your involvement in leadership beyond the academic world? For instance, when you get into work, you would aspire towards either, in your case, perhaps being a union leader, or some other form of government, for want of a better word, in terms of dealing with people.
Yes, no?
This is it for you guys?
Well, honestly speaking, I personally haven't thought about it beyond tertiary level. I was speaking to Mr. Usher outside, and the other day I was speaking to one of my lecturers, and she realized that I'm on the student government, and she said, does this mean that you're interested in politics? And I was like, miss, I don't think I am. I'm not sure. Maybe, but at this present moment, no, I'm not.
I think. Go ahead. I think that yes, it goes like beyond like just the tertiary levels, because like if you want to be a leader now, you'll always want to be a leader. You'll always want to be involved, and I think that maybe not politically involved like a leader in that, but you can take the initiative to do things, because if you have the characteristics of a leader, you'll do it right without being asked to.
Let me jump in here for a second, because I know that this is part of the unspoken challenges that we face. For some reason, we now live in a time where politics seems to be a bad word. It automatically evokes a negative, and all of you in your own way have said it, leader, but not in politics, or no, I'm not interested in politics. No, I don't want to be called a government. No, I don't want to be called. Can I ask you to perhaps look at why, what comes to mind when you hear politics? Very open, tell me. What comes to mind automatically?
Corruption.
Corruption. Give me your first word answers. Let's go with that. First word, Shiyanne.
Corruption.
Corruption.
Honestly, corruption.
Corruption.
The unethical practices.
Unethical practices. All right, so.
Almost one and the same.
Yes. Let me digest that for a second. I keep on telling people, politics is not a bad word. Politics is about how we make decisions as to how our country will be governed. And it impacts everyone, whether they vote or don't vote, whether they can vote or don't vote. You all are of the voting population. I asked your ages off air. I didn't know if you wanted to say it, but all of you are now eligible to vote. Do you look forward to going into a polling station and casting your vote?
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Give us a reason why, before we get to you, Phillip, if you don't mind.
Well, the first time when I turned 18, that was around the same time that we were able to cast our votes. And, you know, as an individual, when you walk into that area, you feel the power. You feel it as an individual, the power that you have, that you can actually make a difference. But then, at the end of the day, you start to think about all the people that have already been corrupted, or their minds have been changed by what is happening and how they have been bribed to their decisions, and it kind of discourages you at the moment, but then you also felt that empowerment for a short while.
We understand about that discouraging feeling that you feel, because you know at some point within the stage of voting, at some point in the farther future, it will lead to some form of corruption or what's not, no? But like for example, I was at church yesterday. I was listening to the priest talk, and in part of talking, he has stated he was talking about Jesus and how he answered questions, and that's when we come to realize that Jesus was a very intelligent man, because he answered a question with a question that led to the answer to that question. So therefore, someone came to him and asked him, should we pay tax to Caesar or should we give the money to the church? And that's when he asked the question and said, whose face is this on this coin? And they said, Caesar. And he said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. Likewise, this is applicable in anything that we do in part of life. So let's say, for example, we are casting out a vote. We know that the political leaders, we cannot tell if they're going to do something bad or if they're going to do something positive out of your vote. But you're doing it for your nation. You're doing it because of the love of the nation. And this is the thing that most people is locked off these days, the love for our nation. We need to be more intrinsically motivated to vote to assist our nation, but not rather to most people are extrinsically motivated, meaning that they're being paid to vote. I'm going to say it, yeah, sorry. But we need to feel it from the inside. We need to do what is right for our nation and step up and make a difference within society. We're not doing it because, oh, I could vote now, or I have that power to vote, or it makes me feel like I have some form of power to vote for within that particular time, but to rather vote because it is essential for our nation. We need to understand that at some point in the future, we will be the one who will govern and rule this country. Yeah. And politics, it is very essential to youth because it is very influential in how we will see ourselves in the next 10 to 15 years from now.
Absolutely. Can you just clarify why you, and it's fine, I want you to feel very open, you know, if you don't feel encouraged to vote, it doesn't mean you won't go out and vote. But why don't you feel encouraged to do so?
Well, to be honest, like before I turned 18, I was all excited. It was all about, oh, I'm going to go vote like for the next general elections. But then I started to realize that the people, I don't want to like try to like attack anyone because, you know, but I don't think that anyone is fit on the menu. There is not like a person that inspires me. So I don't feel the need to go out and cast my vote, because if you vote for one, it's still the same thing. I mean, it might not be as bad, but I feel like the system is too corrupt now, and that, you know, it's not worth it. And that I can't, as much as Danika said that she feels that she can make a change, I feel like if I'm one person and I believe that this person can make a change for our country, and other people believe that he and my friend are going to go vote for it won't work.
Do you all feel inspired by any of your current political leaders?
No.
None. Okay.
Let me ask a question here. Do you guys believe that where you are in terms of your academic pursuits, where you are in terms of being UB students and sixth form students and what have you, informs your position on politics and the voting process? To say this, perhaps you have people out there who are not as educated, who view politics from a different point of view than you guys who are now being educated to a certain point where you can make informed decisions. Do you believe that that has a bearing on how you look at politics and politicians and the overall idea of governance?
It does have a effect if you are educated or not, because if you would go into, let's say you go into villages and you see people who are not educated and you talk to those people about our leaders, and if you just provide a small incentive for them, they will quickly agree with how the country is run because of the incentive that they are provided with. But if you are of the town and you are well aware of what is happening around you, you would know why that incentive is provided and what else they are trying to cover behind everything they're doing.
I believe that being a part of a tertiary level institution, even being a part of the student government or union as you call it, it opens our mind. I personally am enlightened in the role that I've taken this year. I've learned a lot about the way decisions are made, why decisions are being made. So then it makes me sit and wonder at times, okay, maybe the decisions being made by the government, it's the best fit for the country. We might not like it or we might not necessarily agree with it, but if we are not informed or if we don't necessarily know all the facts or the truth behind the matter, then that also influences the opinion that we have on the government.
You know, the assumption made in this country is that everybody is aligned to red or blue. And for certain generations, it seems to, and I'm just speaking as a young person myself, it seems to be true that you're either one or the other. Do you still find that to be the same with people your own age, or do you have more of a mixed bag that there are a bunch of independent thinkers in between?
I think that it's still the same. Nothing changes because people follow the perceptions of others. If my mother UDP, I'm going to vote UDP too. My whole family like UDP, like why not? I think that they don't go based on what they think. They don't do their research. Tradition. They follow tradition. They don't do their own research to see, okay, well, my family like UDP, but maybe I think that this the PUP could do something better.
Or this candidate.
Or this candidate, sorry, this individual candidate. So.
Like what she said just now, it's basically like a cultural normality that's being handed down from generation to generation. So they're voting either for the red or the blue because it is something that they are constantly seeing within the family. So they don't want to break the barrier or think outside of the box. Now this is a very broad topic because it leads to many different channels. This is where institutions come into play. And the most essential one we're looking at right now is the educational system. That institution empowers a student, enables a student to think outside of the box rather than to think within a cube. That's why I admire teachers who allows students to think outside the box and to give their perspective and opinion towards life. Or whatever they are teaching within the institution, they apply it within life. Or they bring up certain things that they have experienced personally into which they could just spread it out and say, this is what's happening within society and this is how I could apply what you're teaching right now. This is what enables students to actually jump into that political career, do the right and motivational things.
Can I say this as a young person myself? And I admire...
We're different young from them, but we're young, right? Yeah.
I admire what you just said, and I respect where you're coming from in terms of being able to break what we would consider the tradition and the norms, right? It is so very orthodox to follow behind what your parents did, what your grandparents did, based on the fact that they may either be red or blue. But it takes a lot more from you with a certain level of either exposure, education, or experience to break away from that. And in this case, vote for someone who you know is competent and capable of delivering on his or her promises. Now, promises, some would say, comfort to a fool, right?
Correct.
But you can only present something that you are prepared to follow up on over the course of your term in office. So you have to give a manifesto, or another word for a promise, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe that as young people and those who are prepared to drive change, that in your respective families or where you come from in your community, you are prepared individually to break that chain?
Well, I could speak for myself in part of that. Yes, I am prepared to break that chain. And basically, it all has to do with a psychological concept like that was developed within 1943. It was Maslow hierarchy theory, whereby we go through our basic needs that we need within society and how we are raised within the society as well. So when we already accomplish certain things, and this goes for political leaders as well, who has that position right now, and like what one of my colleagues just mentioned, some of them are at that position but don't have the full mental capacity to pursue or to continue within those shoes. But after they have already accomplished the basic needs of life, and after they have already accomplished a self of belonging, having a family and so forth, X, Y, and Z, they develop self-esteem. After having a high self-esteem of everything that they have accomplished in life, then they reach a final stage, which is self-actualization. They start thinking, now that I have everything that is necessary for human and so forth to have in order to live,
Then you can start thinking about the bigger picture.
when I die, will anyone remember me?
Yeah.
When I die, am I gonna leave an impact on this nation? So that's when they start
Legacy
thinking.
building, right?
Yeah, and then that's when they start running for politics to make a change.
But
Majority.
it only happens, as you pointed out, with Maslow's
Exactly.
hierarchy of needs, is if your basic needs
Correct.
are met.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
Only if those needs are met.
Yeah.
So, however, some of them have not met these needs. They are in that political stage and they're still raking in everything that they could get for themselves, rather than to give out and to assist the nation.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. Let me push a bit further, because I think when the society looks at young people and they say, where are the young people? The young people don't care. The young people just care about Snapchat and followers and likes. They don't even know what's happening with what is taking place in the country, and they don't seem to care. How do you respond when you hear, or what is your response to people who feel that we have a society of disengaged young people?
Well, for it, sorry, it.
That's okay. We'll get you some water right now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
From the beginning, all the elders and older people think that youths don't have an opinion, or they don't. When they have a conversation, they don't think they have anything effective to add to it or anything important. So when a youth actually stands up and wants to make a change, nobody wants to listen, because they think, oh, then just want the spotlight, or then just want this for the media. And the funny thing is, social media is how we reach everybody.
It's the
Yeah.
media.
Shiyanne?
She basically said it for me.
Yeah.
It reaches the point whereby the youths, or we are engaged, we do care, we have an opinion, but when we do share our opinion or we say something, how many actually listen? Not much. So then what do we do, or what can we do if we want to be a part of what's happening but no one wants to listen?
Any other perspective?
Go ahead.
It's quite interesting, actually. The good thing about this is that I'm always socializing with youths. I'm always talking to them, and I always bring up different questions that relates to life situations. So I'm actually quite familiar with this one here. I've been asking some youths, and I spoke to some of them who loves to hang out in the streets and so forth, because to me, being streetwise is something amazing, because the majority of these kids who are streetwise, who are out there, they are very intelligent. They have a lot to add towards society, apart from violence. And in part of talking to them about this, I have asked them, how do they see themselves into engaging into the political role? Like, try talking to someone about what is necessary for the country. They actually, one of them answered me and told me that they're actually afraid to give an opinion for the betterment of the country, because the moment that they come in front of a political leader and state X, Y, and Z that is wrong with this country, then they are afraid because they know that their family depends on this political power for assistance to continue. They are afraid because eventually when they reach that age whereby they might need the assistance from them, they will no longer receive the assistance from them. So in somewhat or the other, I believe there is a form of suppression towards the youths when it comes to being politically open.
Because there are some politicians who are rather vindictive in the way they go about dealing with people, so that if you have an opinion or a position that contradicts the one that they stand behind, then it becomes a witch hunt, and then they start looking for people who are in opposition to how they think and view things.
So we know that you use social media as your way of perhaps venting your own thoughts and opinions on what is taking place with national issues. Do you feel that you have access to information about national issues sufficiently? No. Okay. What would you like? I mean, what would be ideal in terms of how you would like to find out about what's happening in your country? Who should be telling you? Where should you be getting this information from?
That's a good question, because we don't have like reliable sources. And I think that a lot of people depend on breaking Belize news for like, you know, information, and it's not always correct. Like majority of times it's not. But I think that if we would like have the available information, we would be more informed.
Online. Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't pick up a newspaper now and read the newspaper. And I mean, come on, like, you know how much people have like social media, even like grandparents now. So it's a better way to keep everyone informed. And
so you would prefer to get some information online on social media because that's where it's most accessible to you.
And from sources that we can actually rely on, that sources that will tell us the exact, like the same, what we should know, rather than what we want, what people don't want to hear.
What's the national issue right now that's really the buzz amongst you all as young people? Your friends, you, and it can be more than
Talk
one.
of the sixth form community. What is one of the burning issues?
No national issue? Don't tell me it's about which celebrity is pregnant. That's not the buzz, right? No?
Well, speaking for myself and like around my group, my friends, what a topic that comes up very often is the legalization of the 10 grams of marijuana.
Okay.
Decriminalization.
Decriminalization, my bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a funny thing for us. We had debates about it. We questioned it. We argued about it. We even like one question we asked a lot. If they decriminalize 10 grams of marijuana, you're only supposed to have 10. Where am I going to get that 10 grams from? So it's like, if
you see the gap.
If the youths could be asking these questions, how could they not have been aware of it?
Nice. Anything else?
At school, the funny thing is nobody discusses any national issues, because then the same thing you just mentioned, we are not properly informed about what is happening around us. If we do find out, it's through Facebook, and Facebook is not always accurate or hardly ever accurate.
Based on these national issues, a source in which we should find information, I think everything that is happening within this nation is overtly seen. So if you are involved or you are in love with your nation, you should be able to see exactly what is happening. We don't need another source where we could actually read it in black and white just to make the obvious more obvious. Because it is overtly seen. We all understand exactly what's going on. Like, for example, my friend here brought up the issue with the 10 grams of marijuana. It is very contradictory, because if you are able to have within your possession 10 grams of marijuana, but yet it is illegal for you to sell marijuana.
Cultivate marijuana.
It's very contradictory because
Yeah.
someone
We've been
needs to
asking those
supply.
questions too. Can I ask you, does that seem, you're from Wesley Junior College, that's
Correct.
one of the national issues, because that's a Belize city-based school.
Actually, it is.
That's the
It's
number
something
one.
that was brought up. Yeah.
Okay. Are there other national issues that seem to be a buzz at your school?
Um,
No.
there are so many conversations being brought up, but this is within a small group. It's
Yeah.
not everyone within
Okay.
the schools talking about it, but we've been talking about the passport issues and the entire scenario with the way how government comes together and argue their points and so forth.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do right now is go ahead and take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll have a couple more questions for you guys as we keep on exploring what is the youth's perspective on national issues, on politics. And we're going to continue after the break. So stay tuned.
Awards for 2016, Best Feature on Climate Change and Renewable Energy, Best Feature on Health Journalism, Best Coverage of Disaster Risk, and Best Public Service Spot, with special mention for Best Magazine Program, Best News Feature, Best Disaster Risk Coverage, and Best Commercial Spot.
We're looking for our next love story. Could it be you who could be walking down that aisle? Enter to win your dream wedding on our reality show From Yes to I Do. Channel 5 will follow you. Interested couples are asked to submit their application package at Channel 5 Studios on Coney Drive or send via email to producer@channel5belize.com. Packages must include a written outline of your love story, your vision for your dream wedding, and photos of you and your significant other. The deadline to submit your application is October 27th, 2017 at 5 p.m.
And welcome back to our continuing conversation with a panel of young student body leaders and aspiring student body leaders. And we are discussing a range of topics this morning that has to do with politics, the way we are governed, young people's views on the Belizean experience. That being said, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and discuss the matter of crime and violence as it affects young people. What are your individual perspectives coming from your unique walks of life to the crime situation that is plaguing Belize and young Belizeans for that matter?
I think that poverty and lack of education has a lot to do with it. Growing up on the streets, like in like dangerous environments, you pick it up, like some, not all, not everyone, but it has a lot of influence on the way how you think, the way how you feel. Like I grew up in this environment and I grew up like seeing these things, and until you get, you know, some people fall under the like wrong influence and you end up doing these same things instead of bettering yourselves, because there's no one to like educate you and there's no one to be there to encourage you to stay out of trouble. So I think that the reason that a lot of youths are involved in like the crime and violence is because of the lack of education and the environment that they grew up in.
And to add to what she says, it changes, the perspective changes from the areas you come from, because one area might be experiencing more crime and violence than the other areas, while those other areas may be lacking education and poverty. And instead of turning it into something negative, they try to turn it into something positive.
Yeah. Now, Noheli, you are based in the Cayo district. What's it like for people our young people or even your parents in terms of perspectives of crime and violence in places like Belize City? Is there a lot of fear?
Yes, a lot. Like, while like coming to Belize City, like we make sure that doors are locked. Like you don't have anything out on you that might be like what might set you to be a target, right? It's scary. I mean, because we don't grow up here, so we're not like accustomed to like walking on the streets, and
You don't
it's
know.
a fear. Like it's fear that if you ask permission to go to Belize City, it's like, well, you have to think about it, and like anything could happen. That's yeah.
Well, I know in Dangraga there are pockets of crime that we've seen before. So for you, what's it like in terms of the perspective of Belize City and the level of crime that we see?
Well, I'm also from Cayo, like
Okay.
for like Noheli. So the same thing she said, that when you come to Belize City, you have to make sure everything is on lockdown, you know. And then the people that are already here live a more comfortable life, and they look at us and they can tell we are not from Belize, and they will be like, you know, like
You have nothing to worry about.
nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, you do?
I'm from Ladyville, but I go to school in Bamapan, and like it makes me laugh at times because my friends, the ones from Bamapan, from Cayo, from Dangraga, and some from PG, they're like, oh, Belize City this, Belize City that. I was like, hi, 19 years in Belize City, I'm alive. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
I had like one of my friends, I told her, you behave like as you step off the bus, you're gonna get shot.
Yeah.
It's really not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, I'm from right here in Belize City, closer to Wesley Junior College for me. So I'm actually, like I mentioned before, I'm actually involved with plenty of students, and I talk to them a lot. I talk about different things. So it actually boils down to institutions. It goes right back to institution again. This time, the crime situation, it has nothing to do with the police. They are doing their jobs. It has nothing to do with the institution, the educational institution. They are doing their jobs. I'm sure of that because I'm taking full advantage of that. It all boils down to the family institution, the way in which you're raising a child. If you don't raise your child with morals and values at how it is that they should act within society from ages 0 to 7, then practically you're expecting that child to actually be easily influenced by the outside world. What's happening right now, because I've spoke to certain kids on the street, why do they choose to sell weed or sell drugs rather than to find a decent job and go back to school? And this is the answer that they gave me. They prefer to actually stay within that gang community because that's where the love is. If you notice or if you pay attention, like I mentioned, it is overtly seen. It's right there in front of your eyes. The majority of these kids that are selling drugs are doing it within a family yard. Then eventually other kids who grows up within the yard eventually join that clan, and that's where they feel the love. They're not feeling the love at home, they're feeling it within that group. Everyone, according to psychological theory, everyone who is within the society belongs to different groups, and this is where they form their own group, and that is the gang group. Then eventually to protect each other, because they're dealing with a very dangerous commodity in which they are selling. In part of protecting themselves, that's where the violence comes in. That's where they start to engage into these rival wars or whatever it is to protect that commodity.
Yeah. But what about, I hear what you're saying, and I think you put a lot of thought into this in terms of the reasons why, but what is the everyday life like, especially within the community where you're from, where hearing the gunshots, seeing the bodies can be a regular part of the experience? How does it affect the students of Wesley?
Well, it does affect the students because whenever we're trying to have like an assembly or something, and next thing we know, there's some gang activity happening like a block away or something, there's gunshots happening, then our security guard is the one who actually puts himself at risk to save the students, to help students, to keep everyone inside, to lock up gates, to ensure that everyone is safe or within a classroom or X, Y, and Z. These are the protective measures that are now being taken place in order to not have students in the street while these things are happening, because violence could take place anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Wesley is situated within, let's say, a south side. So that's where the gang activity is more, like what my friend mentioned. It has plenty to do with poverty.
Yeah.
And these are actually the kids in which I mentioned earlier are suppressed, and they have no voice to opinion their thoughts or anything. So that's their way to
Shiyanne?
Going back on what he said, falling on institutions, in my opinion, it has a lot to do with how you are brought up and the home that you come from. But I also think that in our time and in our generation, there are a lot of youths that make excuses for themselves. I mean, we don't all come from fancy homes with everything. Some of us come from a little. We struggle, but I mean, if it all comes down to ambition and what you want. You grow up in a crime-filled community. Of course, you do not want to be a part of that. You come up in a single-parent home. That's not your fault. You can't do anything about it, but you don't. I believe that you don't let the situation that you are in define you. You could always find a way out of that situation. I've spoken to some people that if you ask them, why do you do this, or why are you not in school? Why do you smoke? Why do you deal drugs? Oh, well, my dad wasn't around to show me a better way, or my mom can't afford to send me to school. You could get a job. You don't always have to try and make an excuse for yourself. If you want something, I personally believe you go out and you get it. It's not impossible. It's not that hard.
So we will take our TV powers today and make you all leaders of this nation for a day. Well, for longer than a day. And you are putting together your budget. Where would you make the most investment? And I mean, very specific. Where do you feel that we can make changes in this country? And you all are leaders, you're doing this exercise within your own student unions or governments, right? Where do we need to put our efforts and our money to be able to ensure that we have a better Belize in the future?
The first thing that comes to mind is the education system, the secondary and tertiary levels, because if we would make it like more affordable, maybe more youths would actually have like...
Should it be more affordable or free? What's your thought?
I think free.
Okay.
Everyone should be in, title. You should be able to get an education. And I think that when you come out of like standard 6, like the primary level, you don't get the experience of what it's like to be in the secondary and tertiary levels. You end up with way more experience to make decisions. You don't get easily influenced by what someone tells you because you have your own perception of things now.
Yeah.
And I think that putting the money towards that, like making it more affordable, would allow so many more students to be educated on a different level.
I would say education as well, but not in the idea that not just education of book smart, but also street smart. Because not everyone is academically inclined. So we must also focus on those who are capable and have different skills. We are constantly pounded with the idea that education is the key, and it is always emphasized in everything, but nobody teaches you the key to what. And we want to teach that to the youths. We would like to teach it to the youths, we should say, so that they don't feel any less of a person if they're not in school, but rather that they are improving their skills in whatever field they are capable of.
Agreeing with education, but then going further on education, like she said, there aren't a lot, well, not everybody is academically inclined, so then maybe focusing on the arts, allowing or encouraging youths to be more expressive. Technical schools, well, I mean, we have technical schools, but if we would encourage youths, if you know you're not academically inclined, or if you feel that school is not the place for you, then okay, we'll encourage you to explore your other talents or your other capabilities.
Education is very essential. So I too go with education, but also I would like to second the motion in which he said arts. Because we are talking now, when it comes to arts, we are talking about our cultural development of our nation. If you notice, Belize tend to lean more on the Jamaican culture rather than to stick to their own. So arts would definitely fit the position to build our culture back within Belize City. Then education, well, there have been many stories that has been told, even by my mother, into which, she was born in Honduras, Ocotopeque. It was a small village, but education was very, very hard for her in the way how she needed to attain it. And up to now, it has springboarded from generation to generation. It is not too easy attainable. And financial-wise, for some students who are out there who cannot afford to engage into the educational system. And it is very essential because they are the teachers. There are teachers out there who assist students to unfold properly within this nation. And these are the teachers that we want access to, but we don't have the financial power to gain that access from them. So that's why I go with education.
Let me ask this question. In light of the fact that you guys unanimously agree that education should command the lion's share of any budget, correct? When you look at the present outlay, fiscal budget for 2017 into 2018, and you look at the fact that education does play a huge part of that budget, do you guys believe that we are getting value for money in that particular area where government has set aside millions of dollars for people to access education? But when you look at the fact that the unemployment rate is so high, considering the fact that a lot of people are graduating out of Sixth Form, UB, etc., coming back into the country and not being able to find a job, do you believe from that point of view that education, as opposed to creating industry or productivity, still should command the lion's share?
I was thinking about that when they were mentioning education, and I realized that, like, what do you do next?
Yeah.
After you come out, like, what do you do next? If there's not, like, a job for you, or, there's not anything.
Like a transition program?
And, like, I think many people feel like after they come out, like, they don't get paid for the level of education that they have. And it's sad to hear, like, that people have that, like, that in their heads. Like when I asked someone the other day if they were going to go ahead and finish their bachelor's, and they were like, no, because Belize don't pay, not paying in Belize. But that's not what I think. I think that if you work for it and you can find somewhere that will actually, like, you back what you. So
I like your youthfulness.
Yeah, and I think it is something that we have to. When I was young, people used to tell me, you have the youthful idealism, and I hope you never let it go, because it is very hard to hold on to it as well. But I need to ask this question because we ask it with most young people who come. How many of you and your friends, now that you're furthering your education, want to stay in this country and work in this country? You do?
Yes.
And your friends?
Yes.
Your friends as well? Okay, good. For the rest of you? Okay.
That's
Well,
Phillip.
yeah, we would want
We
to
need a concise answer from you. I love your ideas, but we need a concise answer. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely, but I'm speaking for myself,
Yeah.
because there are many students who actually finish their educational career, or they go abroad to get an education, or to complete it over there so that they could maintain and to work over there, because they feel like it's paying more. There's more advantages for them outside rather than within the country. But it all goes back, now speaking for myself, for the love of the country now. So when completing your associate, your bachelor's degree, whatever it is, try to develop the country a little bit more. If there's not a job suitable, then try to find another one into which you could unfold from and springboard into the correct field that you need to do. So that would be my advice for other
to
youths.
add to it, it's not like what Danika and Shiyanne said. It's not just about the students that are educated, because I think that we need jobs for people who, like, I mean, not all we make for school, and we always say it.
We have skilled
We
laborers.
we have like
And
people.
we love our good musicians
Yeah.
and we love all the other stuff.
Exactly. It's not just about focusing on like, okay, like just because she majored accounting, we have provide a job for she. It's about providing jobs for everyone. So yes, a portion should go to the employment section.
Where do you see yourself as young people today, in the governing practices of the country? How should your leaders involve you in the decision-making processes? I mean, I think you've all, in our conversations before, you recognize that what happens today impacts you in the future. But what do you think needs to be done, or do you want to be involved in these decisions? Tell me. Let's start with you, Danika. Don't hold back.
Well, I've had discussions like this with different people, and they start to talk about how youths can get more involved. And one of the best ideas I've heard is that they should fire everybody and start fresh.
That's the best idea you've heard so far.
Clean slate, right?
You know, at least just one person just to guide everybody. But I think that would be a good idea to have a representative of the youths here in Belize, a part of the higher leadership, well, the government, so that, you know, voices can be heard and different opinions and how things that will affect us differently. Because we have different, Belize borrows a lot of money, and it's our generation and further generations to come that will pay back these monies. And so they don't look at who it will affect. They just try to cover themselves at the moment and forget about the rest.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'll use the example of my university. On the board of trustees for the university, they have a student rep, me. So my first board meeting was, I think, last week, and I sat there and I said, okay, my opinion matters here. I'm here for the students. So they encouraged me not to hold back. Well, the president did. And I started to think, okay, if we could do this here, this small scale for a university, why can't we do that in our actual government? We have the youth council, but they speak on behalf of the youths in our country, but do they listen to them? If we actually have a national youth council, why can't we have a representative in the higher government? It only makes sense. Then being more realistic, it would be hard for the government to listen to the voice of all the youths. Student forums, visit the universities, listen the high schools, listen to what the students have to say.
But do you go when they have forums? Because I know, like, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, plans forums with the Belize Guatemala issue. Do you go? Do you participate? Is that the most effective way to reach out?
It's not always easy, because even having student body meetings or forums at our university, we have the first time a handful, the second time then more. If it's something that becomes frequent, then I believe that we'll have more youths being in. There are a lot of youths that have an opinion and want to be involved, but we just don't have the opportunity to be.
Okay.
How much, let's go for it.
Well, my personal opinion, I think that the majority of youths are not interested into this role, this active role. But what I would want is for the only way that we would be seen and heard within this nation is if the youths come together and have a revolution. Like, for example, let's take for example the other day when the child was missing out in the jungle. I think his name was Usher. Then it's amazing the way in which the community came together, and whether if someone is lost or not, it's the point is the way in which they came together. All the students came together to actually do a peaceful protest. And to me, that's a revolution that's happening there. I would want students to more often to come out and to actually express opinion towards political views as well.
You know, I just want to touch on that a little bit further. It's keeping in the same vein. Historically speaking, in Belize and outside of Belize, young people are very active, especially tertiary level students, as the educated minds or information are usually the ones who tend to be the most active. In Belize, we've seen examples of it too. I don't want to dismiss that. You know, we've seen where student government body presidents have taken the lead on speaking out or protesting in particular issues. Why do you think that now it's just not? It doesn't seem that we have young people as active. Go ahead.
I think that people aren't interested anymore. Just like social media is more important to them now than social issues. They worry about popularity more than they worry about getting involved and trying to make a change for the country.
So let me ask you this then, because it's one of those internal conflicts that I have in terms of understanding the minds of young people of today. You're mentioning that young people are more concerned with how many likes and how many traffic they get to their Facebook or their social media page or whatsoever, versus the reality on the ground. The reality speaks something entirely different than what you create on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever in the realm that you're operating.
Yeah.
Is it, in your opinion, that the leaders of today need to be more attuned with the young people, even if it means meeting them at that level?
Yeah.
In other words, if I need to find you on Facebook, then my message needs to be tailored to reach you on Facebook, as opposed to preaching from on high, from the pulpit, so to speak.
This is a very tricky question, but I think that yes, you do need to, because if you'll say it on the news and you'll go and you'll have this forum and that forum and they don't attend, they're not getting informed. And I don't mean to lower your level to go that low, but you need to find a way to get the youths more involved, even if it's
Being on social media.
Because that's what they go to. That's what they use every day after school. They go before even doing assignments. They're on that phone. So.
And any other thoughts on activism issue? I know we're great at hashtags, right? Like you put a hashtag, but hashtags don't change the world. You know, they won't change Belize. They won't change your community. Go ahead.
I think it's a good idea that somebody's there to come down to our level and able to relate, and also that person should let us know of the power that we hold as youths or as young people, and that we have guidelines and measures and know that how far we can go and what capabilities we have as young people.
Now, you're all leaders within your schools, and I want to say something because I think it is important that we are honest with ourselves as well. Being a leader, one, is a choice. Two, and even though we have innate qualities, two, it comes with challenges as well. But there are different types of leaders. There's leaders who will always be the one to lead and take the brunt of whatever comes first. And there are those who, so they sacrifice themselves before others, and there's some who sacrifice others for themselves. What have you learned about leadership within your own individual roles? And do you think, well, let's go there, I'll follow up after that. What have you learned about being a leader? What are the challenges about being a leader?
I think that being a leader requires you to think about others as well as thinking about yourself, because when it gets hard, you can't just drop everything, because you have people who believe in you, people who actually they wanted you in that position. They thought that you had all these good ideas and you can put them into place, so they're with you. So you can't let them down, as much as sometimes you may find challenges just in school, you have so many assignments and then you have this, you have other commitments, but then you need to stick to it, keep your word. And I think that that's very important, so that people can actually trust you and they look up to you too.
Yeah. Shiyanne?
I think that a key point in being a leader is being able to motivate yourself as well as motivate your team and those around you. Because personally, we've had challenges and it gets hard. You can't please everybody, but as long as you could at least motivate your team, we could do it. Let's keep going. then the job becomes easier.
Pertaining to this, a discussion like this was brought up by my mother yesterday, and she asked the question of, do you think a leader is born or if a leader is made? And the response my father gave was, a true leader is born. And I think there are true leaders among us young people that should come out and stand up to make an actual difference. And it is important for us to have this kind of leadership, because then they will be able to take the stand and lead those of us who are unable to stand up for ourselves and actually be a trendsetter.
Well, in part of being a leader, it's basically having the knowledge and the ability to spread it out, to give it out, to assist other people. And when you're a leader, it's very hard not to, because you're not supposed to help the individual completely. You're supposed to help them help themselves.
Empowerment.
Yes, empowerment. So this is the precise reason exactly as to why I have a study group at Wesley, and I try to help them, to motivate them, give them ideas, and see how they will put it into play. Eventually, when they have put it into play, then that's when I come with another idea, hit them with it, and see exactly as to what will be the outcome of it. It's not only to do the job yourself just because you know that you could do the job, but to actually enforce someone to bring out their full potential. As we understand, to keeping in things to yourself, well, basically it's just like a negligible part of the systematic plan or the process of moving forward or to even development.
So, if we're to move it into the broader scale, we started off with your perceptions of leadership and politics in the country, and it was all negative. So let's give you the opportunity to tell us what the ideal leadership is for a country like Belize. What do you want to see in your leaders? What do you want to hear from them? What do you hope they will work towards? So go back to your drawing board. You're creating this. Since you don't believe it exists, you've said that very clearly. Go back to your drawing board and tell me. Yeah?
Well, my top would be the ethical practices. We need honesty. We need people who will actually listen to what we have to say, because let's be honest, if we had ethical leaders, if we had people who practice these things, we wouldn't have so much corruption in the country. We wouldn't have so many issues, because and finances would actually go to respective places, and we would actually do something. We would actually make change in this country.
Yeah.
So we would develop as a nation if we had ethical practices in our leaders.
Like what I mentioned earlier, it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy theory. We have leaders who are raking in rather than to give out to the nation. As soon as they have accomplished all the stages, like what we said, there are some leaders who are at that position, but they're not fulfilling the needs for the nation. They're fulfilling the needs for themselves, or for particular individuals in which they choose. What they should do, or the way in which I view a leader, is someone who has accomplished life. And from there on, they want to give back to the community. When you reach that final stage of self-actualization, like what I mentioned earlier, that's when you want to help the society. You're no longer doing things for yourself because you're already accomplished in life. What you want to do is to develop the people, develop people around you, develop the society for the nation, with the nation, for the love.
Yeah, for the people.
Well, there are many qualities that a leader should attain, and like what Noheli said, a very important thing they should uphold is integrity, because you can tell a lot of someone by the life they live, and if you are living a different life outside than a life you have inside the office, it conflicts with the decisions you make and the choices and the opportunities you give to the people you have.
Yeah. I think that we need leaders that, like Nola said, are honest. She said, have integrity. I think that we also need leaders who care about the people that they serve, don't just sit up there in your offices and on your pedestal or whatever. Come and be a part of your community, be a part of the people that you are leading. Then maybe then they understand that, okay, these people really need it, or these people, I need to help them. So
Can
Do
I
we
argue
perhaps
from
need younger leaders, or it doesn't matter?
I think we need younger leaders.
Yeah.
Can I argue from a different perspective, just to
Yeah.
shed light on something else that perhaps we're missing here? While I understand the need for people who abide by strictly ethical and moral codes, because that's what you're basically saying, can it be that sometimes we elect leaders to represent us, our interests and our needs? They start off on the right foot, but because the temptations of having all these resources at their disposal changes them over time, that they kind of lose sight of what they ought to be doing in office as opposed to what they're doing for themselves? Have you guys looked at it from that point of view? You have an honest politician who may approach you during campaign time. First time you're seeing this individual, so it's not someone you've heard about before who has been dabbling in public funds, for instance. So you have someone who presents himself genuinely. But then you see the transition once that person is in office. It goes from wanting to help you to wanting to help him or herself
And
over
family
time.
members.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah.
It is needed, and I think that yes, it happens like many times that we trust someone and we'll say like, okay, I'm vying for him. Then it's something different just saying that you'll run for office and you'll be this and that than when you're actually in there. Because like you said, all these resources are around you, and then you start thinking like, okay, well, I kind of want to build my house, and you know, you start thinking about these things, and then you eventually start, you know, you change from what you actually were and what you said you would be. So I think you need to keep up the consistency. You need to do what you'll say you'll do, and for as long as you're there, and not just
I mean,
before.
some people also argue that it's because of us, the voters, who don't say anything and don't pressure. I mean, granted, if you're given a job, you're expected to do your job. But when you don't do your job in any workplace, somebody will say, hey, you're not doing what you're
Somebody has
hired
to
to
crack a whip.
do. Yeah, whether it's a memo, whether it's a conversation, you know, it's going to happen in the workplace that if you don't fulfill your mandate as student government, your students will rise up.
Yeah.
So how do you see, and what's the most effective way in your minds that we can keep leaders accountable, you know? So if we put them in office and we know they probably hopefully start off with good intentions, and then they realize all these resources that are available for them and their family and their children and, you know, their third cousin, how do we keep them accountable? Just your own ideas. This isn't in practices yet.
Sorry.
That's okay, jump in.
I think that Belizeans rant too much. Like, they just want to vent out everything, and instead of actually taking action. So, like, when people protest, what's the solution behind it? Like, are you coming up with possible solutions? That's the point. Like, that's what you need to do. You can't just, okay, let's walk for peace. Just to raise awareness, like, what's that gonna do? Like, that's not changing anything.
Anybody else?
Sorry,
Before you said it, and this is humor to this one. Anybody else in terms of what we can do?
Well, the one thing I've noticed about what's happening here within our country is that we really have some wins, because everything blows over like a breeze.
Precisely why I was laughing. You read my mind. You read my mind.
So
It's not funny. We should laugh. It's horrible. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it all boils down to like I said, politics is very influential, especially to us developing youths. So, like what you're trying to do here today, we're trying to open the eyes for society. That's the name of the show. Hello.
Yeah.
So, we need to voice out our opinions. Like what we said, if we need to come together, collaborate on ideas into how to do peaceful protest, but then again, to have the correct words into how we're going to spread it out to people to let them know exactly as to how we feel about our political views, rather than to just stay quiet.
Let me put this out there, right? The last political sea change, in a manner of speaking, that we have experienced over the past 20 years would have been in 2005, when there was this uproar from the people in terms of how they view we ought to have been governed versus the decision that they took to not only go to the streets, but to effect change at the polls immediately. That was the last watershed moment in a sense. Now, we find that
And young leaders were instrumental.
exactly. The whole UB movement and everybody came on board, and that became a watershed moment in our political history. Now, you find that everything is a puff of smoke, right? People take the online medium and vent there. People form an ad hoc protest and it goes up in smoke.
Poor Noheli is like,
Right?
yes, yes, yes.
But there is little that comes by way of meaningful change in terms of actions that really translate to something positive at the end, as opposed to, as Noheli said, people just ranting and raving and then they go back to work like nothing happened. How do you respond to a situation like that?
I think that as a Belize, as a country, as a nation, we don't necessarily think for ourselves. You go online, there's something happening international, everybody's posting about it. Everybody's posting about it. We have national issues, nobody's posting about it. You just need one start and everybody runs along with it. Give it a week or two, it dies down. So I believe that it's gotten to the point whereby the youth voices have been suppressed. Even in the institutions, people always come to student government and, oh, you have to protest this and you have to protest that. Yes, let's do that. How many students will come out?
Good point. And don't make it be a rainy day.
How many
What do you
students?
think holds us back, though? From your own, you're young people. You tend to be more impulsive. What do you think holds us back from seeing something, identifying it? You mentioned it very clearly that we overtly see what's happening, but we may complain about it maybe first with family, friends, maybe in a little wider community. But what holds us back from going into solution mode?
I think that maybe the consequences. Students having a protest, oh, I'll miss my class, I'll miss grades, I'll be in trouble. Workers protesting, I'll lose my job, I won't get paid. So I think it's just the consequences that
Fear.
That stops.
There's a lot of fear.
Fear.
And then forgot in more in depth into it, for we young people, the most important thing for it is our pride level. We don't want to do this because we don't want this person seeing us doing this, or if our pride level is really high, and it's a very bad thing, because then the measures we have to take, we have to come out of our shells. And the more things happening to us, the more advantages they take of us. They take little by little, and then eventually it can.
Okay, well, we got to end off the segment, and I want to leave on doom and gloom. So I want to give you, you all have inspired me, I can say, just by hearing how eloquent, intelligent, and how much you are aware of what's happening in the country. So tell me what you are most optimistic about. We have very good things that happen in Belize. One, you guys are able to be in a free media to speak and express these opinions. That's, we're not suffering famine, we don't have war. So there are good aspects of the country, but we have challenges like anywhere else that we have to overcome. Tell me what makes you most optimistic about the future of Belize. When you look at it today, what do you look forward to either seeing be better or to be a part of?
I think that we have a lot of young leaders, and that's what it moves me a lot. I'm excited to see how they will make the change for the country, along with how we will make the change. Because our generation, we're coming up, the leaders won't be the same in the next 10 years, the next 5 years. And I think that I'm I'm excited to see what change we, as like my generation, like what change we can bring, like, and if we'll actually like change things, like instead of just following in the same, like we have to break the barrier. We have to, and I think I'm excited to see so many young leaders. Like I hear people talking every day, like with so much expression. Like it's amazing to see how many people want change and how many will actually work toward it.
Fantastic.
I'm excited to see what will happen because just the opportunity of all of us sitting here as one, we're able to base on one topic and have the same ideas. And I would like to see that us tertiary level leaders, we come together and we actually start something, actually start a fire. And even later on, years from now, even if it is not us, probably we influence somebody else and they take a further step into it.
Yeah.
Like Noheli said, I'm also excited to see what my generation will bring. It amazed me to see that we sat here and we all shared the same or similar sentiments. So I know that there are a lot of young people that are passionate about change.
Yeah.
So it makes me want to be more a part of it.
Well, I already think that we have the, let's call you the union party, right? You guys get yourself ready and run for the next election. Go ahead.
I'm pretty much excited about all of these. I mean, look at how we come together. We generate ideas. We're putting it out there in order for everyone to understand what's going on. Likewise, at Wesley Junior College, I have some other students there who are very, very vibrant in colors, the way how they express themselves and to give out key points that will develop this nation. So with all these young generation coming together with these bright ideas, and we're actually outspoken about it, we don't really feel too shy. At the beginning, we're nervous, yes. And if you notice, even myself, a lot of people look at me and tell me, you never look nervous, and think I'm nervous. I even carry a paper clip when I'm nervous with me. So, this is exactly what I am talking about. This generation will make a change. We will make an impact for the betterment of this nation. Like I said, I always emphasize on love because love is what will bring this nation back together.
And good communication.
And communication.
Well, we're grateful that you all accepted the opportunity to use this space to just have an open conversation about our country, about our young people, and the things that we all want to see. So thank you for being here, and that means you guys have to go back and be the type of leaders that you just described as well within your own student governments. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to go ahead now and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, so stay tuned.